Everything you thought you knew about Wild West shootouts is about to be shattered. Movies make them stylish. Two men squaring off in perfect silence, polished leather, steady hands. But the real exchanges were nothing like that. In the dust-choked streets of frontier towns, bullets flew without aim. Crowds panicked, and most gunfights unfolded in seconds, not grand duels. Behind every shot was fear, misjudgment, bad lighting, drunken mistakes, or a weapon that didn't fire when it mattered. Today, we peel back the legends and step into the version of the West that Hollywood never dared to show. The one where survival wasn't heroic, just desperate. Wyatt Earp, the man behind the myth. Wyatt Earp's name echoes through every Western as if he were carved out of iron, a man who could end a gunfight with a single, perfect draw. At least, that's what the movies want you to believe. The truth looked very different on the dusty streets of Dodge City in 1879, where Earp often stood in the shadows instead of the spotlight, watching trouble build before he ever reached for his gun. One night outside the Long Branch Saloon, rain slicked the wooden boardwalk as a drunken cowboy waved a revolver wildly. Earp stepped forward slowly, his boot slipping for half a second before he steadied himself and fired only when there was no other choice. The papers later transformed that stumble into a heroic charge, smoothing out every moment of fear and uncertainty. And if that version surprises you, wait until you see who lands in the crosshairs next at number 29. Shootout legends versus what actually happened. Every showdown you've seen in movies carries more flair than the West ever allowed. On the plains and in the cramped alleys of frontier towns, no one stood perfectly still, waiting for a dramatic cue. Picture Abilene in the early 1870s. A crowd spilling out of a saloon, boots scraping the dirt, when two angry cowhands reached for their revolvers at the same frantic moment. A gust of wind sent trail dust swirling, and the first shot didn't even hit its target. It shattered a porch lantern, sending sparks across the street. What followed wasn't a clean duel, but a scramble for cover, men diving behind hitching posts as smoke swallowed the street. Later, the newspapers retold it as a graceful standoff, trimming away the panic and the misfires to make it sound like legend. And if this glimpse behind the curtain shocks you, wait until you see the duel at number 28 that nearly tore a town in half. Movie shootout scenes that lied to you. Hollywood loves to dress shootouts in slow motion. Perfect aim, sharp sound, and heroes who move as if danger bends around them. But step into Deadwood in 1876, and the truth looks nothing like the screen. A crowd gathered outside the Gem Theater, dust hanging thick as two drunken rivals barked threats at each other. The first shot wasn't heroic at all. It was an accidental blast that ricocheted off a wagon wheel, sending horses rearing and people diving for anything solid. Smoke rolled so fast it swallowed the street, leaving both men firing blindly, unsure who they were even aiming at. Storytellers later polished the scene into a clean duel, trimming away the screams, the confusion, and the unlucky bystanders who paid the price. What followed in the next tale didn't just rewrite a legend. It exposed how fear, not fame, shaped the West's most whispered confrontations. Gunfight myths the movies got totally wrong. Movies make gunfights look precise, clean, and almost choreographed. But the real West was nothing like that. On any given afternoon, a single argument could explode into mayhem. Shots flying wild, ricochets slamming into windows, and bystanders screaming as smoke swallowed the street. Quick draws were rarely quick. Hands trembled, and the man who survived was usually the one who ducked behind a wagon or disappeared into a doorway at the right moment. Even seasoned lawmen trusted instinct over accuracy, firing through clouds of dust that made it impossible to see more than a few steps ahead. Every so-called victory carried panic, hesitation, and the kind of regret Hollywood never shows. Stories grew taller with every retelling, turning confusion into honor and accidents into expert marksmanship. Scars, Broken bones and shattered nerves remind us how far reality strayed from legend. And somewhere, among those half-forgotten accounts, lies a confrontation so disturbing that the people who witnessed it chose silence over storytelling. Stories of Wild West duels. The truth revealed. Duels in the Wild West weren't elegant showdowns beneath a blazing sun, no matter how often movies pretend they were. Most of the so-called face-to-face standoffs began with slurred insults, spilled whiskey, or a glance someone took the wrong way. Guns jammed at the worst moments. Bullets skimmed past hats and jackets, and men stumbled through dust thick enough to blur friend from foe. The fighters weren't statues of courage. They were frightened, unpredictable, and desperate to stay alive. Innocent bystanders were hit more often than anyone admits, and legends usually grew from one man surviving by pure chance. Newspapers inflated every minor scrap, turning clumsy skirmishes into heroic sagas that audiences devoured. When the dust finally settled, the streets held more fear than pride, and the scars left behind told darker stories than any headline ever printed. And buried in those scars is a duel whispered about only in fragments, a confrontation whose final moments could change everything we think we know about one infamous frontier town. Shootout moments debunked by real gunfighters. The movies make shootouts look like carefully staged performances, slow, dramatic draws, and flawless accuracy. But anyone who lived through the real thing remembered something far more chaotic. Smoke drifted through the air, so thick it blurred targets into silhouettes, and every heartbeat felt louder than the gunshots themselves. Men didn't stand tall and strike heroic poses. They slipped in the dust, fired too early, or froze when their nerves betrayed them. Survival often came down to diving behind a trough, stumbling into an alley, or squeezing the trigger a second before panic shut down every thought. The legends that followed were stitched together from lucky hits and stories polished by proud survivors or eager storytellers. In reality, most gunfights ended with confusion, stray bullets, and men limping away with wounds that never quite healed. The glory you see on screen hides how unpredictable and frightening those moments truly were. And somewhere hidden in that fog of fear lies a clash so unsettling that the few who witnessed it carried the truth to their graves. Hollywood gunfight cliches versus real-life tactics. Hollywood loves to glamorize gunfights, slow, confident draws, perfect accuracy, and heroes who stroll away without a scratch. But the real West played by different rules entirely. Gunmen didn't stand in open streets waiting for a dramatic moment. They crouched behind barrels, slipped into doorways, or leaned around wagon wheels just long enough to fire a shaky shot. Precision was rare, nerves faltered, and even the most experienced shooters fell back on instinct when their hands started to tremble. The stories that survived inflated every clean hit, while quietly ignoring the frantic dodges, misfires, and lucky breaks that actually decided most outcomes. Instead of dramatic silence, the streets echoed with ricochets, startled screams, and boots scrambling for cover. Those who lived through these confrontations carried scars much heavier than film scripts ever admit. The real gunfights were unpredictable, gritty, and ruled by desperation more than heroism. And hidden within those desperate tactics was one encounter so volatile, the truth was whispered only between the few who survived it. Western shootout scenes that never happened. Not every iconic shootout in the Wild West ever truly happened. Many of the stories people pass down today were stitched together by dime novel writers, overexcited reporters, or locals who wanted their quiet towns to sound far more dangerous than they really were. Streets that look crowded and dramatic in films were often nearly empty, and the legendary duels that shaped frontier folklore were usually brief, awkward scuffles that ended in someone tripping, scrambling away, or firing a single confused shot. Guns jammed, cartridges misfired, and it was often an unlucky bystander, not the intended target, who felt the consequence of a bad aim. The heroic poses and perfect timing came later, added by storytellers who knew that fear, hesitation, and near misses didn't sell papers. Over time, these exaggerations blended so tightly with truth that even historians struggle to separate myth from memory. But within those blurred lines lies one vanished encounter, whose real ending was so volatile, someone made sure it disappeared from the record altogether. Quick-draw duels, the myths exposed. Quick-draw duels in the Wild West were nothing like the elegant, slow-motion showdowns Hollywood perfected. The men involved weren't calm or graceful. They were sweating through their shirts, trying to steady hands that refused to stop shaking. Most so-called showdowns were over in a blink. Someone flinched, someone stumbled, or a shot went wide and sent everyone diving for whatever cover they could find. Positioning mattered more than speed, and a man who kept his back to a wall often walked away while the faster draw didn't. But the newspapers refused to print stories about fear and luck. They rewrote these messy scraps into tales of flawless marksmanship and steel-nerved courage. Films later built entire legends on these exaggerations, ignoring the dust, confusion, and raw panic that defined real frontier duels. History, when stripped of decoration, shows something far more human and far less heroic. Yet hidden among those rushed, frantic confrontations is one duel whose real ending was so unsettling that the truth slipped quietly out of the written record, leaving only whispers behind. Misconceptions about deadly showdowns in history. History often paints deadly showdowns as perfectly timed duels of honor, but the reality was far less polished. Most real encounters exploded without warning, shaped by panic, dust-filled air, and the unpredictable reactions of frightened men. Shots veered off course, boots slipped in the dirt, and survival frequently came down to sheer accident rather than courage. Newspapers trimmed away the confusion and fear, turning messy clashes into neat stories of bravery that audiences were eager to believe. Hollywood followed the same path, smoothing every rough edge and skipping over the hesitation, the missteps, and the regrets survivors carried for years. Exaggerated retellings built legends so large that the truth was swallowed beneath layers of myth. When we strip away those embellishments, what remains is a picture of confrontation, driven by fear more than honor. And tucked deep within those overlooked accounts is one encounter, so troubling that the few who knew the truth allowed it to disappear before the world ever heard it. Western movie lies about gunfights you didn't know. Hollywood turned Wild West gunfights into stylish performances. Perfect stances, perfect draws, and flawless heroes framed against dusty streets. But the real encounters were nothing like that. Out there, chaos ruled every second. Guns jammed at the worst moment. Bullets flew in every direction, and even the bravest men fired wildly because fear always struck before accuracy. Cowboys didn't stand tall. They crawled behind barrels, dived into alleys, and sometimes ran for their lives. Witnesses never described glory, only shouting, smoke, and panic that ended as suddenly as it began. Yet newspapers polished the mess into legend, turning accidents into tales of skill and brief scuffles into heroic duels. Beneath all those exaggerations lies a troubling truth. Some gunfights were buried so deeply in silence that only faint whispers remain, hinting at a story no one ever dared to write down. Shootout tropes the movies invented. Movies made shootouts look like choreographed performances. But reality rarely followed the script. Heroes never stood perfectly still, aiming calmly down dusty streets. Real gunfights were full of stumbling, missed shots, and frantic improvisation. Bullets ricocheted, bystanders screamed, and chaos ruled every moment. Cowboys and lawmen ducked behind barrels, dived into alleys, and relied on instinct more than skill. Hollywood polished these messy moments into slow-motion standoffs, hiding the fear, confusion, and desperate survival tactics that defined real confrontations. Legends of sharpshooters and flawless draws were often invented, passed down as folklore, and immortalized on screen. Eyewitnesses remembered adrenaline-fueled errors, sudden retreats, and lucky escapes. Somewhere beneath the myths lies a duel so dark and secretive that the truth disappeared long before anyone could write it down. Misleading shootout moments Hollywood created. Hollywood loved to glamorize gunfights, but real shootouts were far from cinematic perfection. The drama, precision, and heroics portrayed on screen often replaced chaos, fear, and human error. Bullets missed, guns jammed, and fighters ducked, dove, or ran when survival demanded it. Cowboys and lawmen relied on instinct, not skill, improvising as the streets erupted in noise and dust. Newspapers and storytellers exaggerated the skirmishes, turning ordinary, terrifying moments into legends of flawless courage. Eyewitness accounts tell a different story: panic, confusion, and frantic mistakes at every turn. Yet, myths endure, shaping the way we imagine the Wild West. And buried in those embellished tales lies a confrontation so volatile, so deliberately hidden, that the truth was erased long before anyone could record what really happened. Old West gunfight stories that were pure fiction. Many tales of Old West gunfights are inventions, polished over decades to thrill rather than inform. Legends show sharpshooters standing calm beneath the blazing sun, drawing faster than thought itself. But real encounters were messy, terrifying, and unpredictable. Panic, poor aim, and split-second decisions dictated every move, while bullets ricocheted and bystanders scrambled for cover. Newspapers, hungry for readers, transformed minor scuffles into epic duels, building reputations that reality rarely supported. Survivors remembered fear, confusion, and lucky escapes more than skill or heroism. Even the most famous shootouts were rarely the poised, dramatic battles Hollywood depicts. As we strip away the layers of myth, the real story emerges. A world driven by chance, instinct, and human error. And buried deep within one forgotten confrontation lies a secret so dark it was deliberately erased from history. From quick-draw myths real cowboys laughed at, Hollywood made quick-draw duels look like an art form. Lightning-fast hands, perfect aim, and dramatic standoffs at high noon. The reality was far less glamorous. Most gunfights were chaotic, messy affairs where fear, instinct, and luck decided who survived. Draws were slower than films suggest, bullets missed, and improvisation ruled every moment. In the streets, men stumbled on loose boards, ducked behind barrels, or dove into alleys while shots whizzed dangerously close. Witnesses remembered panicked yells, ricocheting bullets, and fleeting decisions, not flawless heroics. Yet stories of swift reflexes and fearless sharpshooters endured, fueling legends that still shape our imagination of the West. Beneath the folklore lies a darker truth, one duel so unsettling that those who survived it kept silent, leaving only fragments and whispers buried in the dust of history. Shootout myths, movies, want you to believe. Movies love to package shootouts as neat, dramatic showdowns, but real encounters were anything but tidy. Heroes didn't stand frozen in dusty streets, waiting for a perfect draw. Chaos ruled, bullets missed, guns jammed, and fear dictated every movement. Legends of sharpshooters hitting every shot are Hollywood inventions, designed to thrill audiences rather than reflect reality. If you're ready to dive deeper into the hidden truths of these deadly duels, subscribe and hit the bell. We're revealing the stories movies never dared to tell. Survivors often recounted scrambling, ducking, and moments of sheer luck deciding life or death. The myths gave us a sense of control over violence, but reality laughed at predictability. Each clash was unpredictable, terrifying, and raw. And as we continue to uncover the truth behind the tales, one unsettling question lingers in the shadows. Which infamous duel contains a secret so shocking it was deliberately erased from public memory, waiting for someone brave enough to expose it?
Wild West gunfights that didn't happen the way you think.
Many Wild West gunfights that became legendary were heavily exaggerated, or didn't happen as we imagine. Tales of cool, calculating shooters facing off at high noon are more fiction than fact. Real encounters were chaotic, terrifying, and often over in seconds. Panic, missed shots, and sheer luck dictated who survived. not heroics or perfect aim. Newspapers and storytellers transform small skirmishes into epic battles, creating myths that still shape our imagination. Witnesses recalled confusion, screams, and frantic movement, far from the poised standoffs Hollywood loves. The truth is messy, raw, and unpredictable. And as we dig deeper into the records of these so-called legendary duels, one chilling question arises. Which infamous confrontation hid a truth so dangerous it was erased before anyone could tell the full story? Movie mistakes about historic shootouts. Hollywood has a habit of rewriting history, especially when it comes to gunfights. Films portray precise shots, dramatic standoffs, and heroes standing tall under blazing sun. But the truth is far less glamorous. Real shootouts were chaotic affairs, dominated by fear, poor visibility, and split-second decisions. Bullets missed, bystanders panicked, and what seemed like a legendary duel was often a messy scramble. Newspapers and storytellers exaggerated small skirmishes, creating the myths we now associate with the Old West. Even the most famous duels rarely mirrored the cinematic versions. And as we peel back layers of fiction from fact, one unsettling question emerges. Which supposedly historic showdown hides a shocking secret so carefully buried that discovering it could change everything you thought you knew about the Wild West? Wrong ideas about gunfighting. Everyone believes. Most of what we think we know about gunfighting is shaped by movies, not history. People imagine duels fought with precision, honor, and calm nerves. But reality was far grimmer. Fear and confusion ruled. Shots were wild, injuries random, and deaths often accidental. Legends of heroes drawing faster than lightning were mostly tall tales, created to sell papers and thrill audiences. Real cowboys rarely aimed for flair, they aimed for survival. Misunderstandings about speed, accuracy, and courage have persisted for generations, coloring our perception of the Wild West. And as we sift through the chaotic records and first-hand accounts, a chilling mystery lingers. Which one notorious duel holds a hidden betrayal, a secret so shocking that historians have avoided it for decades, waiting for the right person to uncover the truth? Shootout lies, told by classic Western films. Classic Westerns painted shootouts as elegant duels, crisp standoffs, cool cowboys, and bullets that never missed. Reality, however, was messy and terrifying. Real gunfights were unpredictable, often lasting only seconds, dominated by fear, fumbling weapons, and accidental injuries. Many legendary showdowns were exaggerated in newspapers and later immortalized on screen, creating myths that made heroes out of ordinary men. Fast draws, perfect aim, and cinematic tension rarely matched the truth. Survivors recounted chaos, screaming, and confusion far removed from any silver screen glamour. These lies shaped our perception of the Old West for generations. Yet behind the myths, one unanswered question nags historians. Which infamous gunfight harbored a secret so shocking it was intentionally hidden from the public record, waiting for someone daring enough to bring the truth into the light? Hollywood myths about gunfighters revealed. Hollywood loves its heroes, sharpshooting, fearless, and flawless in every duel. But the truth about real gunfighters couldn't be further from the movies. Most were ordinary men, jittery under pressure, fumbling weapons, and often relying on luck rather than skill. Legends of deadly accuracy, dramatic slow-motion standoffs, and heroic one-on-one duels were mostly fiction, crafted to sell newspapers and thrill audiences. Many notorious gunfighters survived countless scrapes by pure chance, not cinematic talent. As we separate myth from reality, the line between truth and story blurs. And just when you think you've uncovered the facts, one astonishing revelation remains buried, an untold encounter so bizarre and deadly that it challenges everything you believed about the men who made the Wild West so infamous. Misunderstandings about deadly duels in the West. We've all imagined the classic Western duel. Two men facing each other at high noon, slow draw, perfect aim, and dramatic tension. Reality was far less poetic. Most deadly duels were chaotic, short, and terrifying, with bullets often missing completely or striking by accident. Fear, poor lighting, and unsteady hands ruled the day. Legends exaggerated skill and calmness, turning ordinary mistakes into heroic lore. Even eyewitness accounts contradict each other, showing that panic often dictated the outcome, rather than courage or technique. Yet buried in dusty records lies one duel that defies all known accounts. A confrontation so bizarre, so brutal, that it rewrites the rules we thought governed Old West showdowns. And the details, until now, have remained a closely guarded secret, waiting to shock anyone daring enough to uncover the truth. Gunfight scenes, inspired by myths, not reality. Countless Western films glorified gunfights, crafting scenes inspired more by legend than truth. Bullets flew with cinematic precision, cowboys stood perfectly still, and every duel unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance. In reality, chaos ruled. Shots went wide, weapons jammed, and fear dictated every movement. Newspapers exaggerated killings to sell stories, and Hollywood borrowed freely, turning mistakes into drama. Most heroes survived by luck, hiding behind barrels or fleeing in panic, far from the poised gunslinger image we've seen on screen. Yet among these fabricated tales lies a single real gunfight that inspired a century of myths, a confrontation so shocking and counterintuitive that even historians struggle to believe it happened. And its secrets? They've remained buried, waiting for the moment someone dares to reveal what truly transpired in that fateful showdown.
Shootout stories retold. What really happened?
Stories of Wild West shootouts have been told for generations, but the truth is rarely as dramatic as the tales suggest. Most encounters were chaotic, brief, and driven by fear, not skill. Guns misfired, men froze, and many so-called duels ended in accidental injuries or escapes, rather than legendary heroics. Newspapers and storytellers twisted facts to create larger-than-life figures, turning ordinary confrontations into epic clashes. Eyewitness accounts often contradict each other, revealing confusion and exaggeration at every turn. Yet hidden among these distorted tales lies a single incident so baffling that it defies everything we know about Old West violence. One encounter where timing, chance, and sheer unpredictability collided. And the full story has remained secret, waiting for someone to uncover the shocking reality behind the legend.
Western gunfighter legends versus real-life violence.
Western gunfighter legends paint a picture of calm, skilled marksmen facing off with deadly precision, but reality tells a different story. Most gunfights were frantic, messy, and far less glamorous. Bullets missed, weapons jammed, and panic often determined the outcome, not bravery or talent. Newspapers and dime novels amplified stories, turning coincidence into myth and mistakes into heroism. The truth reveals men fleeing for their lives, hiding behind barrels, or accidentally shooting themselves or allies. Yet among the chaos, there exists a single confrontation, so strange, so unpredictable, that even the most seasoned historians struggle to explain it. What really happened that day challenges everything we thought we knew about gunfights, leaving a trail of unanswered questions and a mystery that still whispers from the dusty streets of the Old West. TV and movie shootout tricks exposed. Television and film have long shaped our vision of gunfights, but the reality was far less glamorous. Slow-motion duels, perfectly timed shots, and dramatic standoffs are Hollywood inventions, designed to thrill rather than reflect truth. Real shootouts were messy, chaotic affairs. Bullets missed, weapons misfired, and fear ruled every decision. Directors borrowed from newspapers and dime novels, turning rumor into spectacle, and turning ordinary criminals into legends. Yet hidden among these false portrayals is a single historical encounter that defies the rules of both cinema and reality. A confrontation so improbable and shocking that even eyewitness accounts seem contradictory. What happened during that fateful clash continues to puzzle historians, and the true details remain buried, leaving only whispers of a story far stranger than anything the silver screen could ever imagine. Myths about gunslingers and deadly duels. The Old West is filled with stories of gunslingers who faced each other in tense, cinematic duels. But most of these tales are myths. In reality, duels were rare, clumsy, and often avoided altogether. Quick draws were exaggerated, and reputations often relied more on threats than actual skill. Many so-called shootouts ended with a warning shot or a retreat, not bloodshed. Legends were fueled by newspapers seeking excitement, turning ordinary criminals into icons. Yet, buried in these embellished accounts lies one duel so mysterious, so unexpected, that even seasoned historians can't agree on the outcome. A single moment where timing, luck, and human error collided, leaving a secret that changed the way we understand Old West violence. The truth is hidden, and the question remains: who really survived that fateful confrontation? Movie lies about historic gun battles. Movies often make historic gun battles look like choreographed performances, with soldiers moving in slow motion and every shot perfectly aimed. In reality, these clashes were chaotic, terrifying, and far less stylish. Smoke, confusion, and fear dominated the scene, and luck often mattered more than skill. Filmmakers borrowed details from exaggerated stories, turning confusion into legend and accidental deaths into heroic feats. If you want to uncover more hidden truths behind history's deadliest battles, subscribe now and hit the bell. We're just scratching the surface. Yet hidden in these historical skirmishes is one particular battle so baffling, so unpredictable, that eyewitness accounts contradict each other entirely. What truly happened on that battlefield defies conventional logic and challenges every assumption we've inherited from cinema. Even decades later, historians debate the events, leaving only fragments of evidence. And an unsettling question: what secrets from that clash remain buried, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover them? Shootout fictions that warped our view of the West. Stories of legendary shootouts shaped our idea of the Wild West, but most were heavily exaggerated or completely fabricated. Townsfolk, journalists, and dime novel writers collaborated in building myths, turning ordinary conflicts into dramatic duels. Fast draws, precise aim, and heroic standoffs were Hollywood-ready tales, not historical reality. Real gunfights were chaotic, terrifying, and often ended with confusion rather than glory. Yet within these distorted stories lies one encounter so strange and improbable that even contemporary accounts clash. A single event where timing, luck, and human error converged, leaving an outcome no one fully understands. The truth behind it may forever challenge the legends we trust, raising the eerie possibility that somewhere, a hidden record of the incident exists, one that could rewrite everything we think we know about the lawless West.
Misrepresentations of real gunfights in pop culture.
Pop culture has immortalized the Wild West with guns blazing, quick draws, and cinematic showdowns. But reality tells a far grimmer story. Most epic gunfights were chaotic affairs, marked by fear, confusion, and chance, not heroics. Films and TV borrowed heavily from sensationalized accounts, trading historical accuracy for drama and spectacle. Real cowboys often avoided violence, and many legendary duels never happened, or ended quietly, without a single shot fired. Yet, the myths persist, shaping how generations imagine the West, even as historians uncover messy, inconvenient truths. The stories we've been told were polished, edited, and packaged for entertainment, leaving a legacy of glamorized danger. In the end, pop culture didn't just misrepresent gunfights, it rewrote history, leaving a shadow of legend over the gritty reality of life on the frontier. The Wild West was never as glamorous or as precise as Hollywood made it seem. Real gunfights were messy, terrifying, and unpredictable, far removed from the stylized duels on screen. Peeling back the myths reveals the raw fear, chance, and chaos that shaped every legendary showdown. Sometimes, truth is stranger and darker than fiction. If you enjoyed uncovering the real stories behind these infamous shootouts, subscribe for more deep dives into history's shocking moments. Hit the bell to never miss an episode and share your thoughts below, because in the Old West, the line between legend and reality was thinner than you ever imagined.